All right. So tonight you may have noticed when I put those slides up that the platform we're using is a little bit different. It's called Mentimeter. We're going to do some interactive stuff tonight. It's going to be real fun. And if you're having any trouble, we have a small enough group where we should be able to troubleshoot stuff pretty quickly. But welcome to this December Advocates Network meeting. It's the last one of the year, which feels kind of weird. The next time we're back here, it's going to be 2025. So as always, everyone, please put your name, personal pronouns in the chat, and then where you're zooming in from. You can see me there at the bottom, Ben Robinson, he, him, Denver, Great Education in Colorado. Our vision through public education, every Colorado student, regardless of their zip code, learning needs, language, identities, or the color of their skin, graduates prepared to lead their best life. And accompanying that, our mission, Great Education Colorado harnesses the power of grassroots activism and diverse, inclusive networks to guarantee that public schools in every Colorado community are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. All right. Our goal, as always, is to create a space for us to build community and take action together. So welcome, everyone. We meet the second Tuesday of every month from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. I just finished making the January link right before this meeting, so I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat in just a few minutes when I get a chance. Our community commitments, move up and move back. I know for a fact that everyone here has great things to say, and some people sometimes have a lot of great things to say. Let's just make sure that we're giving everyone a chance to speak. Number two, no one knows everything, but together we know a lot. We all come at this with different backgrounds. Some of us are retired teachers, elected officials. All of us were once students, and we really cherish the perspectives that you all bring here. And then last, presuming positive intent, but acknowledging our impact. Some of us maybe get a little bit intense from time to time, although I don't think we've really ever had much of a problem with this. Lisa laughing. But if somebody just says something that offends another person that another person finds is not very nice, let's make sure that we make everything all right and move on so that we can go on discussing the things that matter to public education. Whoops, not supposed to see that yet. All right, so we have kind of a special presentation for you tonight. Lisa's here, and then Lindley McCrary from CASB, board president of CASB, is also here. They gave a version of this presentation at the CASB conference. Was that last week, Lisa? It was last Friday.
Friday.
And we're going to talk tonight sort of about what we're going to do going forward. We've talked a little bit about the adequacy study and the Get It Done campaign. We're going to kind of bundle all those things together in one presentation and kind of discuss what this next year is going to look like. But before we get there, I have a question for you. How many people in this room, and I think this is kind of a no-brainer, but let's answer it anyway. Raise your hand if you think that public education needs more money. Okay, that was easy. I imagine Jan and Mary and Ayana are also raising their hands. And how many of you think that we can get some of that money, a lot of that money, in the next 2 years? Not so confident. Lindley's like, yeah.
I'm a halfway optimistic today.
Okay. Jan, thumbs up. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of tepid. Like, that's sort of what I would expect. I'd probably be like, maybe right here. If I didn't know what I'm about to tell you. All right. So let's get back to it then. I just got to make sure my screen is still, yeah, it's not on the same screen. There we go. Okay. The answer is that we can get that money if we think we can, right? I know that sounds kind of simplistic, but we're going to discuss ways that we can do that in greater depth over the next few minutes here tonight. But now, before we do that, there's a QR code at the left-hand side of your screen right there. And we're going to use that to answer some questions that we're going to pose on the screen later. So if you could go to that, Delana, do folks need anything besides that QR code and the number that's on the screen currently up in the top center?
Nope, they should, they can either go to menti.com and use the code or scan the QR code and it should take them right there.
Great. So I'm going to give folks just like a couple minutes to do that. If you're having any trouble, please just let me know. You can just start talking.
All right, got some thumbs up.
Are we just supposed to have a screen with we can if we think we can?
Yep. Basically, we're going to take you all the way through the presentation, and then the slides where we want you to answer something, you're going to be able to type your answer in, and then it'll appear on this screen.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Okay, wow.
I just got this red screen.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Is that right?
I don't know. Delana, what does that look like to you?
I mean, I see grade ed, a teeny little thing on the top.
That's what
Let's
it looked like yesterday for me too when I was playing around with it. So you might still be okay.
Let me see if Jerry, let me see if we change slides here in a second, if it changes slides on your screen. Okay. It seems like everybody else is good. Okay. Cool. So let's forge ahead here. And Jerry, if you're still having trouble in a minute, we can go ahead and
Oh,
fix
I
it.
got it. I reloaded. It came up.
Perfect. All right. So this is sort of a synopsis of the challenges that we face and the vision that we possess to solve each one, right? So the first challenge here, which we have talked about many times in these meetings and elsewhere, is this sense of learned helplessness that some time ago, and this is true of really, I think, any policy area, but and it's true of ours too, where a lot of organizations, a lot of individuals have just sort of resorted to saying, well, we've tried X number of times before, it hasn't worked. We're up against this really formidable, nasty thing called Tabor, and it's hard to knock it down. So, maybe we'll get there one day, but it's not worth putting it in a ton of effort right now. And our antidote to that, and it sounds simplistic right now, but it won't in a few minutes, is optimistic and collaborative action. Right. And the next one is divisions exploited, right? Sometimes we have a really hard time coming together even within the education community when we believe in the same kinds of reforms, right? And we've overcome that to some degree before with things like the Great Schools Thriving Communities Coalition and Amendment 73. Even if we didn't get that passed, right, that was an amazing demonstration of unity in a very sort of far-flung, ideologically diverse group of people that hadn't been able to come together before and do something like that. We know we can do that again, right? We're united in advocacy. That's what it says there on the right. And then chronic underfunding, which feeds into this learned helplessness and makes people less likely to try and act, right? And our vision there is fully and fairly funded schools, which sounds pretty familiar to what we have gone for in the past, but the approach this time is definitely different. And then legislative hand-wringing. We all know this one. We get on the good side of a few legislators at the beginning of the session, only to find out that this is either not on their agenda or that it's genuinely too hard to get through at the legislature, and then people don't want to try again after that. And so there are all these roadblocks that we've run into at the legislature. But our antidote to that is the Get It Done campaign, which is this cool graphic down there. So what's the plan? So over the next few minutes, we're just going to kind of go over what the Get It Done plan is. and how we think, how we believe, we've set something up basically to help us succeed in a way that we haven't before. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the adequacy study is coming out and that we can capitalize on that. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lisa to talk a little bit more about how we're going to set this whole thing up.
Yep, and can you just go back to that slide, Ben, because it's kind of the overview of what's going to happen. We know the adequacy study is coming out in January, so we are preparing for its release. We'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. We're going to be building local teams all around the state to work together to bring their legislators, to ask their legislators to sit down with them and find out what the adequacy study means to their own district, so that we're making sure that the adequacy study doesn't get put on a shelf with that legislative hand-wringing of saying, well, there's nothing we can do about it. So we're going to be building these local teams to get together with the legislator and demand that the legislature create a Colorado blueprint for student success. We are wishing and advocating that blueprint into existence. Now you see the next three are in lighter font because we're not going to talk about exactly how all these things are going to happen, although we're working on them already. But what will happen after we get the legislature this year to create some kind of committee to create the, or it'll be a committee, maybe an interim committee, maybe a task force to implement the recommendations of the adequacy study. This isn't just, let's talk about school finance. This is how are we going to create that blueprint? And then the next thing next year is we're going to get them to pass the blueprint. And at the end of next year, we're going to fund the blueprint. And a lot of these things, they are in motion. This is not a pipe dream, but we're going to focus on those first three first. And Lindley, I want to share this with you because but you want to take the next two slides like you did in the springs?
Sure. I'm also super low maintenance, so if you want to keep going, that's
No,
fine.
you're great.
I'm happy to
I
talk about
talk
it.
too much.
So we shared with our crew on Friday that they were our test subjects because they were the first ones to see this presentation. So you all are still kind of in that category. So part of what we're trying to do is to help everyone have a good set of expectations of what you're going to see in the adequacy study. Because while it will have a dollar amount attached to it, really what we're looking for is the adequacy studies are going to identify the resources that are necessary to ensure that all students in public schools can accomplish, and I would say not only what state law requires, but what they deserve in public education. And so that's, looking at class sizes, looking at how many counselors are in a building at different grade levels, looking at, just the whole list of resources that you all know and understand very well. So it's more than just a dollar amount, and we are wanting to focus the conversation around the resource piece, because if we just go in and say we want to fund schools at this level, we're going to have a huge uphill battle. But if we can go in and we can have the conversation about resources, and we can tell the story of each individual district of what this level of resource would do for the students in Littleton Public Schools. For example, that's where I serve on the board in Littleton. Then I feel like we will have a better impact on our legislators in telling the story. And so another really important piece is that this is not the first time that adequacy studies have been done in Colorado, but this is the first time that the state has commissioned the studies and has funded these studies. So that's a really important piece. We got buy-in from them to pay to do these studies. And so now we need to really encourage them to read them and pay attention to them and be a part of the conversation. And so, as Lisa mentioned, we're trying to build local teams. And I'm sure you all know as well, too, the voice of you and your community with your elected officials is so much more beneficial than if I go as CASB president or if Lisa goes on behalf of Grade Ed. Your voice with your elected officials is so much more important and is so incredibly valuable. So we're working on building local teams. We are preparing a video that will make it really easy for you to share out, that gives the outline of the adequacy study and what is it going to look like. And then we're working on, once we get the local teams kind of going, having a coalition that can all lean on each other to work through this process of advocating for education in Colorado. Go to the next slide. So it always starts with the local teams, right? If we're going to be effective, we have to start within our own communities. And so as we were talking about, the theme message is get it done. And how can we help each other and support each other to encourage our legislators to get it done. And that will include meeting with legislators, holding them accountable, and then also gathering and disseminate stories and support signature gathering if there is something that will be on the ballot. So what we are working on right now is we really want feedback from all of you. Our goal as a team, and this is more than just me and Lisa, but our goal as a team is to try to create something that's going to be very empowering for you and really easy for you to navigate. And so we want your feedback on what you need to engage with your local community. So are there things that we can put in place? We talked about with the board members at CASB, obviously talking points and things like that. But if you're thinking about, say you're a team leader or you're participating in a team in your community, what are the things that we can do or provide for you to be able to engage in your community at an effective level? And then I think that's our first question, right? Yes. So we'll be using the Mentimeter, and you can just type in any feedback that you want to share about what you need or what would be helpful for you to engage within your community and help build a local team.
Well, I lost my contact.
You have to go to the next slide.
Me? Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Thanks,
Oh,
Ben.
thank you.
You should be all good now. Thank you, Delana. So we'll take a few minutes, answer this question, and we'll sort of discuss some of the answers.
Yeah, I'm an idiot. Do I go to annotate to do this? Is that what I have to do?
Let me go in there and see.
So there should be, you should see a blue box that says short answers are recommended. Do you see that on your phone or
It's
your
like
computer?
it's just like texting in the little box.
Yeah,
So I have to take a picture of the,
yeah, you have to use your own device. Yeah,
okay, so,
yeah.
all right, so I take a picture of that,
QR code.
okay, wait a minute. As I say, I'm a little slow-witted.
It's okay.
That's okay.
No, you are not.
I'm
If
pretty
I
slow.
can do it, you can do it.
Okay, Mary, thank you.
Yeah, Mentimeter is still, I think, relatively new. The first time I
Okay, I did that. Now what do I do?
Did it
Click on
take you? Yeah, did it take you to the Mentimeter site? It's not really a picture that you take. You kind of just scan it with your phone and it should bring up a website that you can click on,
Okay, let me try this thing again then.
or you can just go to menti.com on your phone.
Okay, hang on.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, link. Show options. Open link. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Now you're in.
Okay. Very clever.
And we really appreciate you doing it this way. Ben will moderate and talk about some of your responses and dig in a little bit. But we are collecting this and sharing it with we've got a communication strategy consultant who,
I was
this
supposed to
is
screen.
really important information for what we literally need to create to make this thing work.
this is fascinating to me how different
I think
the
this is
responses
awesome
are
as
from
far, it's
Friday.
better than just typing in the chat.
Yeah. But your answers are very different than we got from school board members on Friday. So this is fascinating and awesome.
And it really does help us segment our work so we can.
And yeah, I think, Barbara, like for Future Advocates Network, so we can do this. I think it's much easier to facilitate discussion when everyone can see what everyone is saying, rather than directing people to the chat to,
Yeah, and scrolling down and
try and
seeing
look between, 4 messages to, right. So
exactly, and then sometimes somebody answers it. So is this just this particular application that does that?
yeah, it's called Mentimeter. So
Uh-huh.
and you can basically, what we're doing right now is we uploaded this presentation that we made elsewhere onto the Mentimeter website. And so it allows us to be more interactive with the presentation.
It
Well,
also does word clouds and polls and, pie graphs. It's pretty
is that
versatile.
something you're thinking about using for these different groups? That these groups would utilize something like this?
It's a great question, actually, Barbara. I mean, it is something that we could, it's a great way if we have a group, a lot of folks meeting with a legislator, that the
Mhm.
legislator could see a whole lot of answers without, it takes a lot less time and everybody can get their ideas in. So that's a new one, and I think it's a brilliant idea. Thank you, Barbara.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I didn't know what to say. I'm the to-do list for teachers, or leaders, but this is like a tool, part of the toolkit that they would have accessible to them to conduct meetings if they need to on Zoom, if it's not in person.
Yeah, and even in person, this is very useful. We use this at our summit.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry I missed it. I was crippled with a bad left hip.
Oh. Well,
But
we'll
it's
have an advocacy day for you to come to, so no worries.
Oh, good. But yeah, the fact that you're working off your phones, I've worked off of phones, but this is the first time I've wrote something like this. But I'm up and running again, so I'll keep an eye out for you.
Is there a way to get rid of the barcode? Because I can't
This,
see a couple of the messages.
Yeah, that's
It's
the
an
other
X.
thing.
Oh,
I
ooh,
wonder if you
take that
click on the
over.
X, if it would go away.
Ooh,
Yes.
work.
we didn't
Thank you.
figure
Yeah,
that
we
out
just,
last
and
week.
if anybody needs to get into it again with that, we can go back to the other slide, but also you can just go to menti.com. So yeah, and you're all there anyway right now. So I have faith that you will stay there. Okay, well, it looks like most people have had a chance to share. So let's go ahead and talk through some of these and see what's going on. So the question again was, what do you need to engage the community and help build a local team? All right, so in that top left corner, we have key messages to use. I think that sounds very reasonable. Tips for how to engage folks new to advocacy. That's definitely something I think that we've struggled with in the past. Communicating with people who want to be part of something like this, don't have any experience in it, and otherwise find it kind of daunting. Links to studies that relate to how funding makes a difference. Yep. So that's, another great resource. Some of the other ones here, will Jared Polis enormously support it? I don't know if he'll enormously support anything, but it would be nice if he supported or at least stepped out of the way, of something that we're trying to push through the legislature or put on the ballot or whatever it is. Very simply show how Tabor ties state hands. Yeah, I think some of these ones, the ones that stick out to me here, like how to organize a group, who and how to reach out to possible team members, a to-do list for leaders, because we have great ideas. Lots of people have great ideas about how to do this stuff or what the policy should be. But really, more often than not, like we can't get there if we don't have a well-organized team or group or whatever you want to call it. And I think that's sort of the step that we struggle and I struggle with taking when we're trying to tackle problems like this. Any other thoughts?
No,
Ben,
I'm
if you
good.
scroll down a little bit, there's, I think, one or two that aren't showing up. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think that, the content and are the things that are really important to have too, but just the nuts and bolts of getting a group together. And I don't know, we're all probably pretty good at that, but then there's some other people that might need some guidelines on what to consider and how to go about doing it and setting agendas and that sort of thing. But maybe that's too practical, but
In terms of what communities, are you talking school districts, house districts, senate district,
yeah.
or is it all of the above?
I think it's all of the above, including communities, neighborhoods within demographic communities, so that this really is not, this is an effort that it goes broadly, but also deep within communities so that we really can turn this into a movement. So this is step one. The first engagement is to get legislators to take this seriously and take an action step in April. But it really is going to be what ends up being the signature gathering and getting this thing passed. So yeah, it's every kind of community. It's book groups. It's, school by school, district by district. And ultimately, hopefully we'll be able to do some coordination, although it's fine if legislators have to do 3 meetings with different communities to hear different thoughts about it. But that's, yeah, it's all of the above. All right.
Okay. I think these are great. And we're gonna have a chance to give more feedback on, I think, at least one more question too. So let's go ahead. And Lisa, I'll let you take this one.
Sure. So there are a lot of tools at our disposal that we are pulling together. The first is somebody asked in the last slide or in the Mentimeter, how do we pull groups together? And our hope is that we'll be able to work with Public School Strong. A number of you have been to our August Advocates Network was actually a training from Public School Strong. So there is a relational organizing platform where people within a community, you have somebody who's sort of the leader just so that they can put out information. People can join the chapter, but also will be part of a statewide Public School Strong group. And in that way, we'll be able to have people, here's a petition that you can send to your school board saying, we want you to write to our legislators and tell them you want them to create this committee. And we can organize those events with legislators. In any event, we're working with Public School Strong to see how quickly they can pull it together. But if that doesn't work, or if that's going to take too long, we're going to find there's other relational organizing platforms. But we are committed to making this happen and putting people in touch with each other in ways that's going to really build muscle locally, and by doing it locally, having a statewide. Jerry, was that a question?
Yeah, excuse me. Where's CEA in all of this, since they are so connected with their local school boards, the local boards? Are they, have you been involved with getting them involved with this? Has this been presented to the board yet, and so on?
It hasn't been presented to the board. CEA is a part of the Great Schools Thriving Communities Coalition, which is really where this is work is going to get done. Lindley is part, the CASE, CASB, CEA, BOCES, Rural Schools Alliance, and other and social justice organizations. So CEA has been a part of that. We've been talking with them. Public School Strong is actually funded by the NEA. And so that's one of the things that we're working on, is getting CEA to fully engage. I'm meeting with the executive director on Friday to see where they are, but this has been all very much in front. And they've been at a number of the GSTC meetings. So they're in it, but not to get ahead of ourselves or out of school here, or however, whatever that phrase is. CEA is looking very seriously at the 2026 ballot with the Together We Thrive coalition. And so we kind of see these two things as merging. That the education community is going to need to, if we've got a lot of muscle, we can go in and say, if you want the education muscle behind getting this thing over the finish line, it needs to provide at least this much for education. And I think that the fact that CEA is leading and Together We Thrive, they are not going to have any objections to making sure that a good amount of this money goes to education. But
And Lisa, do you want me to talk about my list I'm compiling?
oh yes, please.
So I've been, as the president of CASB, we'd started this work ahead of our fall conference and delegate assembly. So I talked about it there, and then I talked about it at our convention last week, in multiple places. And so I have been compiling a list of primarily school board members, but also some superintendents. I'm also working with the Front Range Superintendents group. And I have a list that covers 67 districts across the state of people who are wanting to be a part of being aware of what's going on and be updated, but then hopefully they will be instrumental in helping with their own communities. And so I am continuing to share that every chance that I get. So we've got decent energy, I would say, already getting going on this. And so we're just gonna keep that going. But I have been talking to school board members about it. And then hopefully they will engage with their teachers associations as well.
Anything else on that? Okay. So this is the heart of it. This is sort of a breakthrough that happened just a couple weeks ago, when we were trying to figure out what is it that we can ask legislators to do that is not so far out there, like just create the new School Finance Act, that they would shudder and say, no, be able to say that's just too much, too soon. too heavy a lift for a session that's already, everybody's got their priorities already. But we did know we wanted to have something that they have to vote on, because those of you who've been attending, we've been doing this for 3 years now. You know that our legislature is really good at making sure that they never have an up or down vote on public education. It always gets taken care of in the JBC and the School Finance Act in a way that there's never really a moment where you can say, yes or no, are you going to do this for our schools? And so the sort of breakthrough was this idea of, let's just have them create a committee that says, we are committed to figuring out how to implement this adequacy study. We asked for it, we commissioned it, we paid for it. We're not going to just put it on a shelf. So we're going to figure out how we're going to get from where we are to where we need to be. And so that is the yes or no that we can do. So we're talking about scheduling and holding these meetings with legislators. And at the end of the storytelling from students and parents and teachers and saying this, the adequacy study says our class size should be this. This is what my class size is. Or the adequacy study says that there should be these kinds of career paths available to me. And if, they're not, and so I'm 2 years behind kids all over the rest of the country. Whatever those stories are, make them compelling, really not about the stats as much as the human cost of our underfunding. And then say, are you going to help us get it done? This is a yes or no answer, Representative, Senator, whoever. Are you going to help us get it done? Will you sponsor that bill? Will you be voting for the bill that is going to create that committee? And it seems like a small step just asking for a committee, but it actually will be pretty revolutionary for them to say, we are not going to wring our hands anymore. We're actually going to put resources and time into figuring out the answer, like to put together the blueprint. And that we're going to keep using that phrase, blueprint, because implementation of the adequacy study, pretty wonky, not very emotional. But are you going to support the creation and then the passage of a blueprint for student success? And all of that will work. So we're in progress with what that committee looks like. We're working with a number of legislators, including Assistant Majority Leader Jennifer Bacon, who presented last month, I believe. And we've started having conversations with the speaker about making this happen. And our goal is to have something that we can work toward in April, so that we have this vote in April, not at the same time that that there's the budget going on with the governor trying to take $200 million out of school funding. That fight is going to take up a lot of the oxygen, and we want to make sure that once that's done, it's going to be like, okay, you see what's happening when we don't have an answer for school funding, even when we don't have the BS factor anymore. The legislature's still needing to find ways to cut nonetheless. So after all that is done, we'll have an advocacy day in April, and again, working with leadership to figure out how to make sure that we can, that whatever the mechanism is lined up, and we'll get them. We're going to force people to say, no, I'm not with you. I don't even want to think about how we would possibly implement this study that we commissioned. So that is the goal, is that we create a really big, broad, diverse, inclusive advocacy day, which leads to the next question, I believe.
And that question is, what would make an advocacy day successful and effective?
Mhm. Also, I would add, not just getting legislators to talk to us, but to listen. That's not always their strongest suit. Yeah, feel free to comment if you've submitted something and you want to, you know, embellish on it, please do.
Yeah, this is Barb, and I'll have to honestly say I can't, if I've been to this legislative day. I've been to legislative days, but not an advocacy day for education per se. But I said structure the time or have some. I don't know if there's some strategies on how you want to contact legislatures or reconvene your people to talk to them and find out how things are going and giving them feedback. I guess just going up and standing around and wondering what to do. Lots of times that's where I've been, unless, we go and sit in and listen to somebody talk
Right.
and have a Q&A, and maybe you organize some things ahead of time, meetings
Yep.
for them to go to or sessions to sit in on or whatever.
Making it more. One of the things that has been sort of our calling card, so to speak, Great Ed has never had a paid lobbyist.
Uh-huh.
Ben and I talk to legislators and stuff, but the main thing that we bring is we just have the constituents put in a card to the legislator, just the way that lobbyists do.
Mm-hmm.
That your constituents are here to talk to you about something. And the ones who have refused to do that have gotten a little bit of a
Pushback.
pushback. And so that's so arrange appointments before you arrive. This is all really helpful. How would you know that it was successful? Like what, at the end of the day, we look back and say, damn, that happened. That was great.
Well, I don't know. You need something like this where people can plug in and say, I talked to my representative or senator and they were all on board. And, or else they had some questions, and here's questions that they're asking that we may need to have some answers to as we move forward. Somewhere where you can collect feedback from people before they go home.
It's a great idea.
That is a
Social
really,
media is going to be important too, and that you can I like what you were just saying. I just spoke to my legislator. He refuses to
Yeah.
help us get it done.
Mhm.
Here's his email.
Right.
Or in a better world, here's my legislator who is a co-sponsor of the legislation to make sure that they create a blueprint.
Right. And maybe they have some suggestions or maybe they have some questions. And I think that's as important if someone isn't all in or kind of sitting on the fence, what's holding up things.
All right.
And I think, we're worrying about selling things, but sometimes we have to listen too.
yeah, I think we have to be prepared to hear a lot about how they don't have the money to do it.
Yeah, well.
And we're going to have good
Have
good
some responses to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is actually something that, sorry, Lindley,
no, go ahead.
we want to start figuring out what those FAQs are that we need to give people talking points. What's the pushback we expect so that we can work to have those talking points ready for the first meetings with the legislators even. I don't know why we're talking about this. We don't even have the money to do. It's like, how do you respond to that?
Yeah. And then the point about information in the morning of the session is really good and very relevant. And that was something that came up on Friday. And so what we do when we have, just for example, a CASB day at the Capitol, we have a place set up to meet, whether it's school board members or students who are going and advocating. And we have, a simple breakfast and some coffee and things like that, and just do half an hour to talk through what to expect, how to do it, what to talk about. We can have all the handouts to give to people. So that is something that we've talked about getting set up as well, because I think that's really important. Because it can be hard if you haven't ever gone, or even if you have gone before, it can still be really intimidating.
Right.
And yeah, so
Could you have
our goal
some
is to make it easy.
Yeah, could you have maybe some kind of a meeting online that everybody could, kind of prep them for the day rather than the day of? I mean, even the week before or something, and just say everyone who's planning to go to the Capitol on Advocacy Day, here's kind of, the expectations, and here's some FAQs, and, kind of prepare them.
Can I ask you to type that in so that
Oh,
definitely gets into the mix? Because I did not do the code. But I think that's a really great point, Barbara, that we need to make sure gets registered of what does that timeline look like, and how do we start working on the prep? I will also say that one of the things that you will see in the Get It Done rollout, and if we have time, Ben might be able to show the very beginnings of our Get It Done web page, but we're going to start working on sort of creating teams, or for lack of a better word, gamifying, but like having different levels of advocacy, so that if you're new to it, you can do sort of the advocacy 101. And if you can do that, and it doesn't have to be with grade ed. It could be if you go with CERC to the legislature, but just, sort of walking people through building those skills. Helping us, start creating a low income, a low dollar funding campaign, and then, really marching up to the point where it'd be like, I'm going to be the person who contacts the legislator and figures out where we're going to be meeting. So we really are trying to be cognizant of that and really meeting people where they are.
mhm.
So y'all are going to get a lot of points for all the advocacy network meetings you've been to.
Well, I included the red scarf idea. It wasn't mine. Came from an NEA workshop I went to, and the retired teachers in New Jersey did a lot of advocating, and they would wear the same color scarf. I mean, I think CEA's color has been red, but
Red,
um,
red for
but
red.
the woman who was speaking said when legislators saw 2 or 3 of these people coming down the aisle or whatever with red scarves on, they'd sort of panic and turn around. I mean, I think it also gives maybe people who are new to advocating a little bit of confidence, because it's, if everybody's in street clothes, then you don't know. And honestly, t-shirts to me at the legislature are too casual.
Yeah,
That's not the place. But I
it's not.
love the idea of the scarves. To just, it's that we're all here.
There are
Yep.
times when they don't allow t-shirts, like I've been to committee meetings on gun bills, and Moms Demand Action were told that they couldn't wear their t-shirts.
Yeah, and but a scarf, what are you going to do? Well, I guess they could say you can't wear a scarf.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And another thing that we can think about is the Get It Done logo, as, are you going to get it done? Are we going to
Oh, yeah. I like
so
that.
that everybody sees that, just get it done. And it's like a happy, optimistic visual for a very serious message. All right.
Hey, I've got a comment. Do you mind?
Oh, please, Paula.
Well,
Um, well, I own Colorado Capital Watch, and we just invented or designed an advocacy tool that can send thousands of messages into the legislature in one email rather than 1,000 messages in 1,000 emails. And this is a terrific system because not only does it get lots of messages to legislators, it has a tool that allows legislators to respond back to all the advocates so that you get a complete circle. So I really hope you'll look at this because it is literally the best way of doing message advocacy into the legislature without creating a huge problem for the legislators with their email inbox. And it can do messages, it can do petition, it can do all kinds of, it can take care of that whole scenario. And I really suggest that you give it a look because it is literally the best thing since sugar-coated donuts.
And actually, we're in this transition of, are people using X? Are they leaving X? Are they using, because that used to be a way that you could really, and not used to be, I think there's still, but Blue Sky is starting to happen. So, you know, figuring out how to use social media.
Well, this is all URL based, so you can ship the message tool anywhere to anybody across organizations, use the same URL across all sorts of organizations, but all the advocate messages collect into our system from wherever they're coming from. So whoever is managing that campaign has access to the names and email addresses and Senate districts and House districts that may be well beyond what you would have yourself. So it's really powerful.
Thank you. And if you can send the link to Ben and we can, you know.
Yeah, take a look at it because it's spectacular, I have to say.
Well, we gotta, so thank you, Paula, and I guess we'll just bring it on home because we got 4 minutes. And there is one last thing I have to say at the end, just because it's my job.
Cool.
So take it away, Ben.
Cool. All right. So we have discussed, I think, quite a few things today in not much time, but just to go over them real quick, very briefly, because we will be talking about this stuff in detail again, and hopefully taking action sooner rather than later. So you can see here that we have now through November 2026. So our goal is to build those local teams. What's that? Oh, never mind. Our goal is obviously to build those local teams to engage with the legislature, like Lisa just talked about. And then, but that starts
With
basically
great
right
education.
when we come
I'm
back.
logging off.
Right when we come back. And so our first step, obviously, is to meet with legislators to pass resolutions so that people have it in their heads and they are committed to doing more concrete things later, like establishing a caucus or some kind of formal organization within the legislature that is committed to getting that blueprint for public education fleshed out, and then from there, getting the money that we actually need. So mid-April, to that goal I was just talking about, we're going to have an advocacy day and push for legislative action. We heard some great ideas around that. Maybe getting people together beforehand to discuss what the strategy is, having some kind of piece of clothing, like, for example, a scarf, to let people know who we are. And then May through the end of December 2025 is the creation of that blueprint that Lisa talked about in detail earlier. And then the most important part of the whole thing, January through May of 2026. So not this upcoming legislative session, but the next legislative session after that, the actual passage of that blueprint, and whatever it is, whatever the mechanism is, to get funding, the funding that we need for public education. And that, I guess, is sort of what I just touched on there from January to November 2026 as well. But we like where this is going so far, and we are really glad to have you all on board. And we're excited to keep working towards this in the new year. Lisa, I'll turn it back over to you real quick, but we do have, I don't know, we have, you all are signed up for Great Ed updates on this call, so please ignore number 2 there. And then also ignore number 3 because I just made the new one for January. We're going on a new year, so we're gonna make a whole new set of meetings basically. Let's see, but Lindley, is that link still good for updates and advocacy opportunities, or is that sort of something that you'd specifically given to board members?
That's just the one that I'm using to keep my list going, but we'll have multiple lists going. And so I think if people are plugged in here, they'll be updated on everything that's going on.
Okay, perfect. So go ahead and scan that QR code right under the number 1 at the top left-hand corner of the page if you want those updates. Lisa, I'll hand it back over to you.
Well, like Sally changed her vote, so I guess if you can just go to us. I know a lot of people had to leave. We're just at 5:30, but asking the question that Ben asked before, who thinks that we can make significant progress in the next 2 years? I do. All right. So there we go. So the last thing I have to say is happy Colorado Gives Day to those who celebrate. There is the link where you can support Great Ed's work on Get It Done and all the other advocacy and building that we do. So that was my last bit. Back to you, Ben.
I just donated.
Thank you, Lindley.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Lindley. All right. I will go ahead now and drop the link for the next Advocates Network meeting in the chat. Delana, I think we